Is Julian Assange headed to the United States to testify? We'll see. BLM and Antifa tear up Rochester, while Massachusetts has serious mail in ballot worries, and Joe Biden announces his illustrious transition team. You won't believe his picks. Welcome back to the Daily Facts. So let's get into it. WikiLeaks' Julian Assange is back in court for showdown over extradition to U.S. to face spying charges. Now, just as a quick aside, I am doing a review or a read through, I should say, of the Julian Assange court case. It's fascinating. I mean, it reads like a spy novel. It talks about the number of documents that were released and specific people that aided WikiLeaks and Julian Assange in getting those American documents. So it's well worth the listen. This is just part one. So let's get into this article. With Julian Assange and WikiLeaks. So the extradition hearing of WikiLeaks founder and publisher Julian Assange resumes in London on September 7th after being postponed due to the coronavirus pandemic. Washington wants authorities to extradite Assange to the U.S. to face a court over charges of conspiracy to commit computer intrusion. The Department of Justice has indicted him on 18 counts, alleging 17 forms of espionage and one instance of computer misuse crimes connected to WikiLeaks' dissemination of secret U.S. military documents provided to him by former U.S. Army intelligence analyst Chelsea Manning. And again, the indictment walks through all of that. It's quite fascinating. Assange, 49, denies the charges and claims the U.S. documents WikiLeaks published in 2010 exposed war crimes and human rights abuses by the U.S. military in Iraq. WikiLeaks says the U.S. is trying to criminalize journalistic activity, and if Assange is extradited, it could have serious implications for First Amendment protections. That's true. If they're able to extradite him and try him and he's found guilty, that really shuts down leaking of this type of information, and thus it completely annihilates WikiLeaks. They would probably not have a whole lot of business. People would be fearful of anything they leak. So here's just some highlights about Assange's case. Assange has been locked up at London's Belmarsh prison, a facility that houses some of Britain's most dangerous lawbreakers since May of 2019. So we know that. Let's see. Niles Melzer, the United Nations Special Rapporteur on Torture, said in a recent USA Today interview that when he visited Assange in May last year, he was displaying symptoms akin to psychological torture. Assange is in jail because he was found guilty of skipping bail in 2012 when he fled to Ecuador, the Ecuador embassy. Now, in 2019, the sexual assault charges were dropped against Assange. He was reportedly accused of rape, but those charges have been dropped. There he is there at the Ecuador embassy. And he stayed here for 7 years. 7 years he stayed in that lockdown. It's unbelievable. So then he was dragged out of there in 2019 and thrown into a van, and he was taken to a housing or a prison. Which is where he's currently at right now. He says he's a political refugee, and he maintains that he is a journalist and should be immune from prosecution. So I want to read this here. When Assange left Ecuador's embassy in 2019, he was dragged by British police officers to a waiting van. He was sentenced to 50 weeks in prison for breaching bail in 2012. While he has now served this period, he remains in detention for the extradition. So he's already served his time. He's just waiting to find out if they're going to be able to extradite him. So that's what's going on with Julian Assange. Okay, now, in Rochester, you want to talk about scary things. Red State has an article, thousands Antifa BLM flood Rochester, threatening and smashing restaurants and customers flee in terror. So there was a black man who was killed in police custody, and this was in March. Okay, he was killed, and they're just now marching. And as you can see, I'm just going to play these videos. I'm not going to play any sound, but you'll get the idea. So thousands of people were marching, and from the looks of it, it was rather peaceful. Okay. There's more footage there. And there are thousands, I see thousands of people. Okay. So it was peaceful, and then it went south. Looks like cops were threatened. All right, let's keep going. All right, they're going through residential neighborhoods here. And then they're chanting to people in restaurants, we're going to shut you down. I can only imagine how these people in the restaurants felt. They were probably frightened out of their mind. Here's some footage here of people in restaurants. And this crowd just comes upon them. This is frightening. And people are getting up. This lady's throwing her bag around her neck, and they're leaving, they're departing, they're getting out of there. So I think we get the idea here. There's just a lot of really scary stuff. I mean, people are, yeah, so that's what's happening in Rochester over the death of a black man who was killed back in March. I'm not clear on why they did not march immediately after that. That is very interesting to me. But let's move over to the legal insurrection and talk a little bit about mail-in ballots. So Massachusetts, thousands of mail-in ballots found days after the election. So days after Tuesday's election and MA4 finding ballots, thousands of ballots in all kinds of fun places, including some 3,000 mail-in ballots that never made it to their respective polling locations on election day. And, you know, people are mocking President Trump because he's talking about mail-in ballots, but we're seeing these issues right here. So the Boston Herald wrote, a recount could be looming in the 4th regional congressional district race between two Democrats as more uncounted ballots surfaced on Thursday. Wow. In Franklin, poll workers Thursday evening were counting about 3,000 uncounted ballots, much more than the previously estimated 600 uncounted ballots, according to a spokeswoman for the Secretary of the Commonwealth's office. The newly discovered 3,000 uncounted ballots were mail-in votes that appear to have never made it to polling locations on election day. Okay, so it's just more of the same. And this is proving that. It's just more of the same. I don't think I need to go into that anymore. So let's go on to Joe Biden. Joe Biden names Pete Buttigieg, Susan Rice, and others to his transition team. So this is coming from the Washington Examiner. Joe Biden is expanding his transition team as the day of the election grows closer. Among that cast of characters are Biden's former competitor, Pete Buttigieg, and former President Barack Obama's national security advisor, Susan Rice. So I just see an issue with that right away. Pete Buttigieg, I mean, it just tells you a lot about politics. Pete Buttigieg was on stage, with President or Vice President Biden competing for the presidency. They were opponents. And it's just, I mean, it just tells you that's just fake to me. And Susan Rice, this is the very person that she was part of the unmasking, right? When they were leaving, when the Obama administration was closing out and leaving, and the Trump administration was coming in. Well, right before that, while they were still in office, they were unmasking Americans. Susan Rice sent out an email, I believe, an hour or so before the inauguration of President Trump, trying to cover, do a CYA, as they say. I mean, it's just unbelievable. So they're going to be a part of Biden's 15-person advisory board. Other additions to the board include former Obama administration officials such as Sally Yates, oh my goodness, the former Deputy Attorney General, and Vivek Murthy, the former Surgeon General. Murthy has advised the Biden campaign on the coronavirus pandemic. An announcement of the additions to the team came on Saturday. We are preparing for the transition amid the backdrop of a global health crisis and struggling economy. This is a transition like no other, and the team being assembled will help Joe Biden meet the urgent challenges facing our country on day one, Kaufman said in a statement. Well, good luck to you, Joe Biden, and that interesting transition team. So that's it for the Daily Facts. Do like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment below, and we'll talk soon. Bye.